It's actually just sparkling water. Because I'm a weenie who doesn't drink alcohol during the week. Or at all right now. So I promised myself I wouldn't do this, but hey, here we are. And I wanted to keep this brief for a number of reasons, but I just really wanted to say something. Once again, enjoy the sounds of construction in the background, and also the fact that I'm just completely exhausted because I don't know, the American election is stressing me out. It's stressing me out, man. It's stressing me out. On to what I want to talk about. As I'm sure many of you are aware, Blaire White recently did a big bad. Or a bigger bad than some of her past big bads, but I'm not actually here to talk about the specifics of that. So I'm here to address Blaire White and Kalvin Garrah directly, and I doubt they'll ever see this, but meh. Let me start by saying that when I was first coming to terms with my identity as a trans man, I actually leaned on Kalvin's videos quite a bit. I've recently been unpacking some of why that was and some of the thinking that it led to, and I'd like to follow up to, own some things at some point, because I think that's an important part of that unpacking process. Plus, I wanted to reach out to some of my fellow trans people who may be going through some similar stuff in the hopes of maybe sparing you some of the poo-headedness that I now have to acknowledge in myself. It's just not that fun. We are all a work in progress, and we all have a lot of growth to do, but I'm kind of working towards this place of not holding attitudes that future me would be ashamed of. Now, with all of the ado done, let's talk about Blaire White and Kalvin Garrah. Like I said, specifically, I kind of like to talk to Blaire White and Kalvin Garrah, even if they never end up seeing this. So, Kalvin and Blaire, I don't think you're bad people. I don't think you're acting with explicit intent to harm, and I don't think flame videos calling you toxic and problematic and that saying that you're dangerous to the trans community are going to really help the situation one way or the other. No shade on the people doing that, because they're allowed to have their opinions and they're allowed to have their reactions to this whole conversation. But that's not what I'm personally about. What I want to do here is implore you to do a little bit of self-examination. And I don't want that to come across as, at the ripe old age of 30, I'm gonna tell you kids a little something about community. Because, yeah, I'm basically a senior citizen, but I'm still a baby trans. You two are some of my first exposure to the online trans community, so there's kind of a weird dynamic going on here. But that's just it. You two have a lot of visibility compared to the rest of us, so I want to address this pattern. Specifically, why you continue to showcase people that you claim give the trans community a bad name. I don't think they do, first of all, with, the obvious Yanivian exceptions. But even if I agreed with you, why? What's that about? For the lulz, for the views, are either of those actually worth it for the bad optics? At the end of the day, regardless of what's intended, how it kind of comes across is, look at all of these bad transes. Aren't they completely bananas? They're not like us. We're good trans. We're not like those banana trans. Trananas? Transnanas? Trans bonanza. And listen, I understand that in certain display smashing it's ma'am examples, distancing yourself from that sort of thing can be a matter of safety. But do you not see how it's kind of weird to be like, these people give us a bad name, and then use your massive platforms to highlight these people? Sincere question. I'm also a little confused by the fact that you've both gone after predators who exploit minors. And don't get me wrong, that's not the part I'm confused about. I appreciate that you've done that. But then you go on to make these cringe compilations and reaction videos that largely consist of minors. And no, I don't think for a second that that is even remotely on par with grooming and preying on them, but it's kind of dishonest to say that it's not still exploitation of minors. These are young people who are exploring themselves and trying to figure out their identities in a time when we are encouraged to broadcast our personal lives to the world. That is rough. Much as I lament not having my youth align with this recent-ish influx in trans visibility, I feel really lucky that my teen years didn't coincide with the big social media boom, because I was every known brand of cringe and then some. Which leads me to my next question. Do you feel good about what you're doing? And I don't say that with the subtext of, because you shouldn't, shame on you. I'm sincerely asking, do you feel good about the way you treat other people? And what, if anything, is the intended outcome? You consistently stress to your followers to not go hate on the people that you feature in your videos, but they always do so. At a certain point, you really need to take responsibility and acknowledge your platform, because it's not enough to just sit there and be like, well, I told them not to. This is an established pattern, and you can either break it or continue to perpetuate it, and at a certain point, you really have to ask yourselves how you want to proceed. Because when all is said and done, regardless of how silly or illegitimate you think someone's identity is, it's really mean Like, it's really mean, you guys. Why are you being so mean? Why? What purpose does that serve? What you're doing is incredibly cruel. It's bullying. Not to mention encouraging your hundreds of thousands of followers between the two of you to contribute to that bullying. And in cases like Jessica Yaniv, that's entirely reasonable. Like, drum that monster off the internet. Get her away from the people that she's preying on. Perfect. Do it. But Milo, Brennan, Cass, Janae, every other person who's featured in all of those TikToks that you react to, what did any of them do aside from just existing authentically? Like, why go after them? What change does that make in the world other than just contributing more cruelty to it, and against a population of people that already puts up with more than enough of that? You don't have to fully understand someone's experiences to respect them as a person. And going further, you don't even have to respect someone to not contribute to an agenda of hatred and cruelty against them. For real, most of the time, not doing a thing is much easier than doing a thing. But here's where I might be a little misguided, because I personally think that both of you do care. You wouldn't be removing some of your old videos if you didn't care, at least like a little bit. But maybe rather than go back and erase some of your own cringe-worthy content, you could start making amends. I mean, maybe you could start with some apologies to some of the people that you've hurt. Maybe you could acknowledge the harm that you've contributed to. Maybe going forward you could not do it anymore. I am a binary transgender man. I experienced dysphoria and had a long history of it. I saw the therapists, I did my readiness assessments, I paid my dues and wait times. We're obviously different as individuals, but when it comes to our experiences as trans people, I have a lot more in common with both of you than I do with many of the people that you've targeted. When I see these videos of other trans people with identities and experiences that are different from mine, I too acknowledge that I'm not like them. But here's the thing. What's wrong with being like them? Like, why would that be the end of the world? Are they coming after you? Are they making statements that they are representative of every single person under the trans umbrella? Because I personally haven't seen any of that. Transphobia and limited access to transition resources are absolutely problems that need to be addressed. What I want to know is whether or not you sincerely think that what you're doing is going to contribute to that end goal. Because it kind of just looks like you're assigning the problem to an easy target rather than the right one. Stepping on the downtrodden is a much shorter climb, but it's definitely not going to get you to where you're trying to go. And maybe you're not trying to go anywhere. Maybe you're just doing this for fun. Maybe you're just doing it because you find it entertaining. But again, that begs the question, is mocking others for entertainment really what you want to put out in the world? Do you think that some of this might be in conflict with your future morals? Because you could spare yourself a lot of personal hindsight cringe if you cleaned it up sooner rather than later. You're both so ready to point fingers at people who are giving the trans community a bad name that neither of you seems to have considered the fact that bullying people and attacking your own community maybe is doing more of that. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's all I got. On the off chance that either of you saw this, thanks for your time. In the much greater likelihood that you're somebody else watching this, hi, I hope you're getting enough sleep and just generally taking care of yourself, because this past week, this past month, you know what, this past year, it's 2020, has been incredibly stressful. I'm losing daylight here. All I have is my ring light, which makes me look like a ghost. And spooky month is over, much as I'm pained to acknowledge it. I know some of you are waiting on Parents Video Part 2. I was going to release it. It's a lot. I'm gonna come back to it when I'm not so sweepy. I'm just really sweepy. Thanks for watching.